Shalom Aleichem, welcome one, welcome all to a new round, a new start. As we begin a new machzer, and we've concluded Sefer Hamada. Welcome to those who are joining us on Facebook, on Chabad.org, those who are watching at a later point in time. On behalf of all the people who have spent the time and energy to put together today's Siyum, my name is Rabbi Raleigh Resnick, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you as we celebrate the conclusion of a book. We celebrate the conclusion of Sefer Hamada. Yes, it might be the introductory book. It might be the book that is the gateway to all the other books. But we do so in the effort to be able to strengthen ourselves and to give us more chizuk on the Sefer of Rambam. And we can have no more appropriate an individual to help celebrate the conclusion of Sefer Hamada than Rabbi Friedman. Rabbi Friedman, of course, needs no introduction, and usually when an MC says that someone doesn't need an introduction, they usually then spend the next 5 minutes introducing them. But Rabbi Friedman truly doesn't need any introduction, and we'd like to welcome Rabbi Friedman here to please give us an oomph here. Rabbi Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Friedman.
Good evening. Shalom.
Good evening, and Mazel Tov on the conclusion of Sefer Hamada. So it all begins in the beginning. So can you take us through the beginning? The Rambam opens his book, and he tells us that the foundation of Judaism is to know that there's an Eibishter. He doesn't use the word to believe. And I guess our opening question here is, does he want us to know? In other words, should we prove it? Is that what he means by the word to know? Does he want us to sit there and logically prove that there's a God? Are we supposed to be sure of it? If you believe it, you're not sure. He wants us to really be sure of it. What does the Rambam mean when he tells us the foundation of Judaism is to know? And what are we supposed to know? And if you can sum that up in 20 seconds, all of Judaism, that would be great.
Yeah, 10 seconds will be enough. To know means to get close. To get close. Because there's no way that you can love without getting close. So if he's unknowable, then he's unlovable. So without the knowledge, everything breaks down. Everything comes to a halt. There's no place to go.
So and believing is different? So believing is not closeness?
No. See, believing comes from the fact that you can't know. Belief is reserved for things that are unknowable. So if you believe in something, it means it's very far above you, beyond you, unreachable, untouchable. That doesn't produce ahava. And that's why he says in Tanya that ahava and yira come from seichel, not from emuna. They come from chochma and bina, are the parents of the emotions, not emuna. As far as emuna is concerned, you can believe truly and deeply and do the exact opposite of what he wants. And that's not hypocritical. That's the nature of emuna. Ganva pumachtarta rachmana karya. He has emuna. He knows that without the Eibishter's help, no project can be successful. His project is to break into a house and rob it. So he's asking the Eibishter to help him because he knows that without that, his theft will be unsuccessful.
So the Rambam means that the foundation of Yiddishkeit is to have an awareness that will bring to emotion. That's when the Rambam opens the entire book. That's the entire Yiddishkeit in the Rambam. That's the foundation of Judaism. That's
the principle of all principles and the foundation of all wisdom. But he uses the word leida, not chochma, not bina, das.
Mm-hmm. Connection.
Das means closeness. So the question is, aren't we taught and reminded constantly that les machshava tfisa bei? We're told that no one can understand him, no one can know him. He is unknowable.
And the Rambam says that in this book as well.
Because it's true. He can't deny it. And at the same time, the the foundation of all of it is to get to know him. So the Alter Rebbe clears it up in Tanya very clearly. And by the way, the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam are almost always saying the same thing. Anyway, so the Alter Rebbe clears it up. The Alter Rebbe says, because the Eibush that is less machshava tvisabei, that's why he puts himself into Torah so that kol machshava tvisabei. So you're right. Of course, naturally, whatever that means, we should not be able to know him. Even the highest angels don't understand him and know him. And yet we have a mitzvah, literally it's a mitzvah, Yedias Hashem, Da'as Elekei Avicha. So how do we resolve that contradiction? The unknowable God makes himself knowable in Torah. The Alter Rebbe used to say, Ata haresa lodas. Ata, you, Atzmos Ein Seif. Haresa hast sich bewiesen. You made yourself visible. Lodas amezol dir wissen. So that's a very strong emphasis has to be made on the fact that the Rambam says that the beginning of all wisdom is not Emuna and it's not Ahava. It's Yediyah. And that's why we need to learn Chassidus, because the only place in Torah where you actually get Yediyas Hashem is in Chassidus.
Let's move from this. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Please finish it.
Kabbalah is all the right information, but nobody knows what it's saying. So
let's jump from here to another part of Mada, and the Rambam seems to be really infatuated. He's infatuated with Bechira. Free choice is something that the Rambam spends a lot of time on. So I guess the question is, I mean, obviously he tells us that without that there's no reward and punishment, but why is that so fundamental to being a Jew? And Rambam has to talk about it in his book of halachas. This is something which we have to know as a halachic Jew to follow Judaism. We have to know this. What is this Bechira all about?
Very closely related to Yedias Hashem. If you want to understand the Eibishter, you have to understand what Bechira is and why it is. Why is Bechira a positive thing? All it means is that I can mess up. I have freedom of choice. What's so special about it? I can sin. What is that? Why is that a compliment to the human being? We would be much better off without Bechira. And where do we have freedom of choice? In what? Everything is b'hashgacha pratis. So the house you buy, the shoes you're wearing, the person you marry, none of that is Bechira. Which is good, because we don't know who to marry and we don't know which house to buy. If it was up to us, we would constantly be making mistakes, making bad choices. Let the Eibishter make the choice. It'll be much better.
I mean, he answers that and he says it's about reward and punishment, he tells us.
But what does that mean, really?
Okay.
So it turns out that the only place where we really have Bechira is in our reaction to the Eibishter. No place else. Hakel b'dei shamayim, chutz mi'yirah shamayim. So our response to the Eibishter, in that we have freedom of choice, and in nothing else. Nothing. Why? Because the Eibishter wants our ahava. If I don't have freedom of choice, he doesn't get my ahava.
He gets his ahava.
Right? He's loving himself. So now we know something about the Eibishter. We know that he doesn't just want everything to be perfect. He wants a response from us. He wants a partner, not a clone. How do you have a partner? If the partner can say no to your offer, but he says yes, then he's a partner. If he can't say no, he's not a partner, he's just a tool. So the Eibishter had to give us bechira when it comes to him, because otherwise he doesn't get what he wants. In everything else, much better he should make the choice, and there's no harm done. On the contrary, he makes better choices. Mm-hmm. So here's where the catch is. Everybody has this problem. How do we have free choice if the Eibishter already knows what's going to happen? You see, there's where we get trapped. The Eibishter knows what's going to happen. So how do we have freedom of choice? In other words, if the Eibishter makes a plan and then gives us free choice, then there's a problem. He already made a plan, and his plan can't fail. So how do we have free choice? The Rambam says that this is a conundrum that will never work out. Human beings can't understand it. Okay, so we go to a source higher than a human being. The solution to that problem, once you hear it, is quite simple. Who says that the Eibishter made a plan, then created a human being, and then gave the human being free choice? That would be a problem. That's not how it happens. First, the Eibishter checks to see what your choices are. Then he makes a plan. So your free choice is absolutely free. It comes first. Knowing what you're going to choose, he forms a plan around your choice. And that's what the Alter Rebbe said. Da malamaylo mimcha, what the Maggid said. The Mishne that says, know what is above you, literally means know that what is above the whole Hashgacha Pratis plan, the vast eternal plan, that would be messed up if Tevye was rich. That whole plan is based on mimcha. It comes from your choices.
And that's what the Rambam means. The Rambam says we can't understand it. That's what he means. When he says we can't understand it, he means based on your model, we can't understand it, but on a different model, we can. That's what he means?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Before, sorry, you have one more thing to add over here. Go, sorry.
I was just going to say how sad it is that this mitzvah, Yesod HaYesodis and Amud HaChachma, is the most neglected mitzvah in the world today.
Meaning,
ask your average frum person who spends all his life learning Torah, and you ask him, so what do you know about the Eibishter? Oh, las machshava tfisabe. Whenever the Rebbe would urge people who were not Chabad, urge them to learn Chassidus Chabad, the reason was because without it, you can't have Yedias Hashem. And it's Yesod HaYesodis and Amud HaChachma.
And so so just to go this place, someone who's studying Chassidus and they're learning about Atzilus and they're learning about that brings the closeness and the love and the fear to Hashem that you were describing at the beginning?
Well, there's one little condition. You have to understand what you're learning. If you learn it with Emuna, it's not called learning. Fascinating thing that the Rambam says, right? What do we know about the Eibishter? First thing, what do we know? That he exists. that he is the original existence. Fascinating, fantastic. If that's what the Eibishter is, the original being from which all other beings come, then everybody believes in God. There's no one who doesn't believe that there was an original being. Why they call the original being a subatomic particle, I don't know. But if you say everything began in a subatomic particle that exploded and created everything else, well, then that's your God. Don't tell me you're an atheist. You're not.
You have an affinity and a love and a closeness to that subatomic particle.
Well, that's hard to get romantic with a with a subatomic particle. But that's your God. Don't say you don't have a God. And by the way, the belief in the subatomic particle is such a blind faith that it makes religion look like nothing. Anyway.
So let's move. So go ahead. Sorry, conclude it. We'll go one last topic. Go ahead.
But then the Rebbe says something even more fantastic. What do you mean God exists? To exist, as far as we know, to exist means to occupy space. Why? He doesn't occupy space. So how can you say he exists? You can't say anything else about him because he's unknowable, right? So you can't say he's big, he's smart, he's strong, but you can say he exists. Why? So the second halacha, the Rambam says, Im yale al hadas, if you go up to a higher level of das, and you come to the conclusion that he does not exist, meaning you can't limit him to existence, then nothing else exists either, which is fine. It's a higher level of perception. So a higher level of das would tell you that the Eibishter is not an existent being like we are. He makes himself exist so that other things can exist from him. So for him to exist is a descent. It's a yerida. He takes on existence in order for us to exist.
Beautiful.
It's another way of saying tzimtzum.
Beautiful.
So what do we know about this? I mean, this is really, so what do we now know about the Eibishter? Now we know that before he existed, he wanted something. And in order to get that, he made himself exist. So he exists because he wants. Before he exists, he already wants. And so, well, wait a minute. Before he exists, who wants?
That's it.
That's the part that less machshava trisabeh. If you're going to ask, before he exists, who is it who wants? The answer is the Eibishter. Now you know what God really is. What God really is not the original existence. What God really is the reason for existence, including his own existence. That's called Nisave HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liyas Leidira B'Tachtenim. The taiva came before his existence.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, so I think we're going to have to relearn the entire. We're going to have to this 20-minute will be the synopsis, and then we'll go through the entire Parakrishan. Have you ever done a class on this, Rabbi Friedman? Going through the entire first parak of the Rambam in this way?
I can tell you that I was speaking about this, and in the audience there were 4 young Russians recent immigrants who were absolute products of the atheist communist educational system. They believed in nothing. But what one of them said, as he was listening, one of them said, but wait a minute, before he exists, who wants? I said, God. They said, wow, that we can believe.
Wow.
That's not belief, now it's Yediyah.
Okay, on this note, I guess are we going to go one more topic? We have just 30 seconds over here, if we can just go. The Rambam sort of takes us through the book, and he covers every facet of life. He covers medicine. He covers going to the bathroom. He covers how to eat. He covers every area of life, the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen. And then he sort of sums that up at the end, and we're going to do the Siyum in approximately 2 minutes over here. But how does this sort of relate? It starts with the beginning, and then it sort of ends with a crescendo over here, with the totality of all of us connected to Hashem. If you could just sort of end the book for us as we're about to do the Siyum.
There is a sentence, one sentence, that sums up all of reality, all of life, and everything we need to know. And that is, a healthy person is someone whose body is perfectly balanced, so it does not interfere with the mind that is intelligent, so that the mind can pursue the purpose for which we exist. That's all you ever need to know.
That's what he means by kol masecha. That's what it means.
There's only one thing missing from that sentence. A healthy person is someone whose body does not prevent the mind from pursuing the purpose for which we exist. The only thing missing is, what is the purpose for which we exist? For this, we have to go to the Rambam, who was both a doctor and a rabbi. The Rambam says, Kol masecha yiyu l'shem shamayim. So someplace, I don't remember where, the Rambam writes, I can't believe that a human being came up with that. That is such an incredible statement because it is so brief and it says so much. It's like, that's all you need to know. Kol ma'asecha l'shem shamayim. If your body is healthy, he tells you how to keep your body healthy, then it doesn't interfere with your mind. So now your mind can pursue the purpose for which we exist, and that is to bring God into kol ma'asecha, to bring God down to earth. One little sentence that says it all. The Rambam was blown away by it.
And we get used to saying it all the time. And with that, I think, Rabbi Friedman, if we could please honor you to please today be Messiah, we'd like to ask the moderator to please put the very last halacha, talking about how we serve Hashem, doing the truth because it's the truth, loving Hashem. And here we go, Rabbi Friedman, please, can you please read and teach us the very final halacha of the Rambam?
Can we scroll down to the beginning of the Perek? Halacha Aleph. Amazing statement. Al yemer adam hareini eisa mitzvahs ha-Torah ve'eisa b'chachmosa kedei she'akabel kol habrachas haksuves ba. A person should not say, I will follow all the mitzvahs and do it all and study it in order to receive the blessings that were promised, or blessings in this world, or the blessings that come after you die, olam haba, paradise, heaven. Also, a person should not say, I will stay away, efresh min ha'aveda shezhira Torah behen, I will stay away from sin, kedei she'inotzel min haklolis haksuves b'Torah, in order to avoid the punishment of Gehenna or hell. Ein ruya lavedas Hashem al derech hazeh. It is not appropriate to serve God this way. She'ha'eved al derech zeh hu eved miyira ve'eina mailas hanaviyim v'le mailas hachachomim. Ve'ein evdem es Hashem al derech zeh elo amei ha'oretz. To serve God because of reward and punishment, that's the way people who don't learn, or women who don't learn, or children who can't learn. That's how they serve God, because they are taught to do this temporarily until they mature in their knowledge. You see what it says? Ad shetar bedaton v'yavdu me'ahava. See, we've gone back to the original, the beginning of the Sefer. He starts off by saying the main thing is to know das, or das es Hashem, and he concludes by saying, if you're serving God because you don't want to suffer, or because you want blessings, this is not mature, this is not das.
Let's just go to the final look. I apologize to cut you off, but we promised people it's going to be a half an hour scene. That's why they keep on coming back.
Okay. So look, again, what does he say in Vav? The only way to serve God properly is through love. And the only way to come to love is through das. Now, to get to love, Eibishter, davar yaduo borur. It is known and it is obvious. She'ein avas HaKadosh Baruch Hu niksheres b'libe shel adam. A person does not really acquire love in the heart. Ad she yishneba. Not wearing my glasses. Tamid kiroi v'yazev kol masha ba'ilam chutz mimena. In order to implant the love in your heart, you have to really dedicate yourself to it. Kamei shetziva v'omar b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha. First, it says you should love God. V'ahavtas Hashem elikecha. That kind of love is not very deep, and you don't have to work very hard. But in order for the love to be proper, you have to work hard until it becomes b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha, all your heart and all your soul. Einei eiv HaKadosh Baruch Hu
Ella bedas
bedas sheyidaehu. See that? Back to das. In order to love him, you have to get to know him. To know him is to love him. V'al pi hadeya tihi ha'ava. So much so that the nature of the love will be affected by how much you know. Im ma'at, ma'at, v'im harbe, harbe. If you know a little, you will have a little ahava. And if you know a lot, you will have a greater ahava. And this is not quantitative, this is qualitative. A certain kind of knowledge will produce a great ahava. A superficial knowledge will produce a superficial ahava. That's what he calls little. Lefichach, tzarich ha'adam liyachid atzmei. A person has to really devote himself lahovin ulahaskil, to understand and to grasp the chochmes utvunes hameidiin leis kainei. The things that help you get to know your Creator. Kefikeach sheyesh ba'adam, according to the human capacity, lahovin ulahasig kamei shebi'arnu behilchis yesodei haTorah.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman. Eibusha should give you lange gesundte Jahren to continue being meifetz mayonis and teaching and being amada, being a fountain of knowledge, and being able to help all of us come to know the Eibusha. Thank you very, very much, Yesher Koyach. And now, Maskiva Maschal Ashlama, let us begin. Hilchas Kriyishma says the Rambam Pamayim B'chol Yom Kirim Kriyishma. We are commanded to read Shema twice a day. When we lie down, when we wake up, at the time that people rise, go to sleep, at the time that people wake up, and this is daytime. And we are going to conclude today with our quiz. We're going to the prize for today. I believe it's a special set of the Rambam that is going to be given for the winner. Please, we ask the moderator to put up the quiz on the screen and let us go. Question number 1. What is the opening pasuk that the Rambam brings in the beginning of this book? Is a madua basi veinish karasi veinaina? Is a matzasi davravi b'shem kachi meshachted? Is a meshei chas l'dech v'tzchas l'shalev? Or is a meshei chad l'chal l'rtzenecha? Question number 2. Which of these halachas are not in Sefer Hamada? Is it Ilchos Yesodei Torah, Talmud Torah, Kavod Torah, Avodah Zarah? Which one? Number 3. What is the very first mitzvah that Rambam discussed in Ilchos Yesodei Torah? And after we just had this discussion, we know that it is Leida Sheyesh Malika. It's not Emuna Bashem or Avas Hashem or Atzeir Azayis, Leite Machleves or Isra Vaydazar. Question number 4. Pertaining to what halacha does Rambam bring the example of 2 witnesses? We really believe 2 witnesses. Is it the belief in a Navi who does ISIS, who gives us signs? Is it not believing in a Navi who goes against the Nevuah of Moshe? Is it both of the above or is it none of the above? Number 5, in Hilchas Deis, who does the Rambam call a chassid? Who's a chassid? Is it someone who follows the middle path? Is it someone who behaves l'fnei mishras hadin, beyond the letter of the law, or is it someone who has a positive effect on his environment? Question 6. If someone was offended by his friend, the Rambam says he should not keep the hate inside as Rishonim do. Who does the Rambam give as an example of this? Is it Achitophel and Doeg Adaymi? Is it Amnon and Avshalom? Is it Yerav and Nevat and Gechazi? Or is it Izebel and Achav? What is the teachers to student ratio which the Rambam prescribes? Is it 1 teacher to 20 and an assistant up to 35, and over 35 you need 2 teachers? Is it 1 teacher teaches 25 students, an assistant to 40, and over 40 you need 2 teachers? Is it 1 teacher up to 18, an assistant up to 26, and over 26 you need 2 teachers? Or is it a teacher up to 15, an assistant to 25, and over 55, 2 teachers are needed? Question 8. Upon who does the Rambam declare, tell us, Shvulim Ktanim Mechablim Kram, that small foxes destroy vineyards? Are those children who won't go to Cheder? Is it Cheder teachers who have an additional job other than teaching? Is it students who aren't ready to issue rulings and then make themselves into important rabbis? Or someone who rules a din in front of his teacher? And finally, the final question for today is, what does the Rambam write in Hilchos Shuva about anger, hate, jealousy, frivolous behavior, chasing honor, money, and overindulging in food? Does he say, it's not the last one, it's number 9. He say that seeing that there is no negative action, no teshuva is needed. They say that teshuva is needed for also for these character traits, but it's easier to do teshuva for such things compared to stealing and the like. Or does he say that teshuva is needed for these negative character traits, and it's harder to do teshuva for these things? It's harder to do these to get teshuva for a negative trait than it is for a negative act. And finally, how many times does the Rambam say in Mada mitash shalel shma balashma? You know, this answer is pretty impressive, and that is 1, 2, 3, or 4. How many times did Rambam say that? Okay, let's put down the poll and let's. Ready to give the answers? Okay, can we take down the poll? 30 seconds, he says. All right. Let's take down the poll and let's give the answers. Can we take down the poll? Is the poll down? The quiz is down. Okay, here we go. The answers are: the opening sentence of the Rambam is Number 2, which of these are not in Sefer Hamada? It is a Kavod HaTorah. What is the very first mitzvah? It's to know that there's a God. Where does the Rambam talk about 2 witnesses? You'll remember he talks about that both when it comes to believing a Navi and when it comes to not believing a Navi who goes against the Torah of Moshe. Makes no difference. Our eyes have seen like 2 witnesses. Who is a chassid? Someone who goes beyond the letter of the law. Number 6, who does the Rambam give as an example of someone who doesn't harbor hatred inside of them? That is Amnon and Avshalom. The Rambam told us that, who does the Rambam tell us? The small foxes are destroying vineyards. Those are students who aren't ready to rule themselves, and they make themselves into important rabbis. The Rambam tells us in Hilchos Shuva that what? That anger, hate, and jealousy, and all these negative character traits are actually more difficult. It's more difficult for one to do Shuva for them. And finally, how many times does he say, the answer to that question is 4 times. A big yashakayach. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. May we cover and learn and study Hilchas Ava with the same diligence. And we look forward to seeing everyone back in a few weeks as we'll celebrate together the 2nd book, Sefer Ava Yashakayach. to Rabbis Tulalain and Rabbis Cantor and Bush and all the others who are involved behind the scenes in making this beautiful Siyum happen. Thank you very much. Each Sefer, they're dedicated to making this happen for all of us. Hatzlacha Rabbah, a good evening, a good morning, and a good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you very much.